All right, sorry, we're a little bit late, but we just came out of closed session. I will go ahead and open the open session again here at, looks like 6:08. And with that, Jim, any announcement from the closed session?
The board met in closed session and there was no action taken that requires disclosure under the Brown Act.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to public questions and comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons Oh, okay. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons designed to address the board in any matter not on the agenda and over which the board has jurisdiction. However, no action may be taken by the board of directors on any item not appearing on the agenda. Non-agenda speakers are asked to limit their presentation to 5 minutes. Public questions and comments on items listed on the agenda will be accepted at any time the item is brought forth for consideration by the board. When you're recognized by the chairperson, please state your name and approach the podium. So, have anybody for public comment? Is your speaker on? Okay. I can't. Give it a tap. Yeah, he's not on. We're having a technical difficulty there. There's some sunspots or something going on. Oh, I think so. Yeah. Well, we want to make sure it gets recorded, Mike. There we go. Look, you can walk around the room now.
Okay, you got that?
Yeah.
You're okay. My name's Mike Neal, and so I'll be gone. I missed the last workshop in the last board meeting, where I reviewed some of the PowerPoint presentations regarding the groundwater storage and then the cost of the pipeline, which kind of shocked me. I expected it to be a lot, but when I saw the one page that said, well, if you normally have a $77 bill, you're going to get a $250 bill. Or you've got if you got a real high water bill, it's going to go from with some ridiculous $200 to $560. Several of us have been saying this all along, making our own predictions, and it looks like we were low. So that I hope that the district is going to take, those portions of those presentations and make it widely public so that, all these people who, there's all three of us from the public here at this meeting, which is typical. But the other uninformed persons around the valley are going to get forewarning well in advance as to what's coming down on their heads financially with this unwise project that the GAs have been pursuing from day one. And beyond that, just like to say that in general, anymore from this point on in my life, I basically support not putting any more incumbents in office anywhere to get new blood in general. But in this particular case with the board, I think it's good that we're going to have the same three guys continue on. They've done good work, and there's more to be done. This adjudication needs to be followed through, and you guys are all educated on all this, and you know what you do, and we need to keep that going for several more years. So, what I do.
Thank you, Mike. You dropped the mic. Yeah. Any other comments from the public? All righty, I guess I'll take that one then.
Hello. this is Renee Westerlus. Can you hear me?
Yes, Renee?
Okay, one question I have, I didn't see it on the agenda, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, but is there gonna be any discussion about the in your current community service district and that proposal by the state for the water district to manage them? Because that was in the agenda packet. Is that anywhere on the agenda? I don't see it.
The only place that may possibly be discussed is item 10B about the Drinking Water Administrator Program. Can somehow relate to that, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and that will be maybe discussed,
So that's where you'll discuss that. Okay.
right?
And then I have there's different information, a second issue. If you watched the Groundwater Authority meeting at the last meeting in July that they gave an explanation of what the pipeline was going to cost, and they had it estimated at 207 million. So it doesn't jive with what you're saying it's going to cost. You have something like 304 million or something like that. And there's discrepancies, I think, in what your guesstimations are not taking into consideration their data to construct the pipeline. So I suggest all members of the public watch the last Groundwater Authority meeting in July, from July, that's available on the city's website. to
We can't
review.
really discuss that because it's not on the agenda, but I will say this, that those numbers are not guesstimates that you said. All that information was taken from what the Groundwater Authority presently has. It was enhanced by things that may have needed to be added. And also that all has been turned over to the Groundwater Authority and there's been no comment back. Is that correct, Chuck? And that's all I can say about that because it's not on the agenda.
But their comment was probably in last month's meeting, if you listen to what they went over, the costs and everything.
They used
I
their old,
suggest all the board members watch that meeting.
I watched it.
I've seen it too.
They used their old numbers.
We can't,
I believe,
The-
I believe this is on the agenda under the IWVGA
yes.
item, so
Oh,
it'll be it can be discussed under.
Thank you,
there.
Jim. I was looking for a place. Yeah, so we can wait to item F if you like, Renee, and we can do a further discussion on it. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else on the line? Any more public? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item 9, which is the July workshop deferred items. And there's just basically 2 major items here: water review update and report on water losses, consumption, production. And George or staff, I'm not sure how you're handling that.
Okay, we had a couple items that were left over from the last board workshop, and I think Renee, you were up next, or am I up on water view?
Yeah, I have item number 2, but if we can't get the PowerPoint up, I don't know if we want to move on and come back to it when we can, but
Goodness, what's Chris's phone number? I need to give him a call real quick.
So
some technical issues.
I'll discuss water view a little bit, and there wasn't a lot to discuss about water view. I mean, water view, they flew their viewing device over, they mapped out the area. The important thing that came out of water view was a square footage of area that was considered irrigated. And that area that was irrigated was a critical component in the SB 606 California Conservation as a Way of Life calculation about how much water we will be allowed to use in the future. And there are other uses for that data, but generally that's the important number that comes out of that program, and we have been looking at it. The other thing that program does is it gives you some nice tools for inputting data, looking at different scenarios, and calculating sort of overall compliance. So not only does it give you that one important number that you need to have in order to make the calculation. It also has various spreadsheets and other attachments that allow you to calculate different scenarios under, for compliance under that program. And that's really what it does. And so
Okay.
it's an easy tool to compute compliance, and it also gives you that one really critical factor that you have to use in the calculation.
Okay. So I think one critical question I think this board, maybe even the public has, is based on what Waterview is doing and of course, AB 606. I think you were fairly confident that we were going to meet the standards as required. Do you still foresee that happening?
I do. It's going to be a little tighter than I thought. I mean, I think we're going to need to look at the variance options for storm coolers. I think we need to look seriously at recycled water. Recycled water gives us sort of a double benefit. It not only gives us a credit in the Sigma world, it also gives us the same credit as additional water we can use in the California Conservation's way of life. And only larger districts like ourselves can benefit from that. So I'm openly advocating that we pursue recycled water as something that needs to be implemented. It's going to help us in both ways. If you think of it this way, there are two limits that are being put upon us. One of them will be this AB 606 California, and it'll say you can only use this much water. The other one will be Sigma, which will say you can only use this much water based on whatever allocation we receive and allocation we can purchase. And we want to maximize both of those as best we can. And in this case, we have one project that benefits us under both programs. Well, I believe we're in compliance up till 2035. We'll certainly need the evaporative cooler variance put in place by, 10 years from now or so. And that's certainly doable. But, we need all the room we can get. It does appear that they're going to start limiting commercial industrial landscaping in the future and cut back on that. And there'll be other reductions under that program that we envision in the future that, so it is important that we, pursue all available options to benefit us under both programs.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask one more question, is, obviously, we look at our water usage in the summertime compared to the winter when swamp coolers, summer when swamp coolers on. Is the reporting requirement for the state, is it monthly, yearly? How does that go? I mean, how do they determine you're going to be in compliance? Do we know the answer to that yet?
Yeah, it's an annual report.
It's an annual report.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
because, we vary so much month to month. If we did it
Yeah,
monthly, we'd be.
so what happens is you calculate the amount of water you use last year to tell you what the cap is for the next year. So
Okay.
like we say, okay, so when you're saying like, how much water can I use this year? You go back, when you do this calculation, the number of people was the number of people you calculated in your
Right.
population. The amount of landscape was what you had from the previous year. The commercial industrial meters or what was, so you take all this information the previous year and it sets the cap that you have to live under in the following year.
Okay, all right,
And that report goes to the state, then you have to comply with it.
okay.
But I think it
Thank you.
turns out that
I'll ask for
we-
questions
there,
in a minute. Well, I was going to open up to questions from the public as I finish up with the board. Judy, is that okay? It's a program that we purchased for our area here.
Jason can probably highlight us better now. The state suggested we use it and we decided to use it because it was a useful tool, or
state-
did they mandate it?
The state gave them a contract to do the flyover and the topographical, the
Okay.
irrigated part. And then they offered their services for
Oh.
a price.
Oh, yeah.
And they were the
To
only one that had the
interpret the
data,
data.
so they were kind of
Yeah.
the only source you could get it from,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
great business model.
Yeah, okay. Okay, from the board, any more?
I just had a question. You had mentioned the industrial and they were gonna put limits on that. How does that work for the schools and say youth sports and stuff? Cause I'm really concerned about that. The impact that this could have, even the replenishment fees having on our schools and our parks, the youth
Yeah,
baseball fields.
So under the regulation, the California Conservation, if you have a commercial, industrial, a separate meter for your land irrigation, what appears to be happening is they're forcing you to, they're incentivizing you to put more of those meters in. So what they're saying is like, oh, the more commercial, industrial meters you put in, you get to calculate that water and that gives you extra water to use. I've been a regulator long enough to know what that leads to. They collect all that information and they go, look at how much water those guys are using, and they will come back at a future date and they will cut back on the amount of water that is allowed for commercial industrial. They don't cut back on it now because they don't have any data to base a rational decision. This is what we're going to cut back on. I did this at EPA and I've watched other regulatory agencies do this. So they put out this monitoring requirement and they incentivize you. So the more people that put in these commercial industrial meters, the more water we get to use in the short term until the state gets enough data that they can come back and say, now, just like we cut down on residential use, which we had a pretty good idea of, now we're going to go back and cut down on these commercial industrial. So that's probably a good 10 years away, but you can expect that it will be coming.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yep.
All right.
I
Stan?
I think the good news associated with it, if there is any, is that the first 2 years that is our reporting this January for the last fiscal year and the reporting in the following year, all we have to do is provide what our objective was for those years. We don't have to start showing compliance until 2027 for the 2026 fiscal year. So we'll have 2 years under our belt, knowing exactly what we're doing before there's any issue about compliance at all. Not that we shouldn't be trying, obviously, but nonetheless, the compliance issues don't start until January 1 of 2027 for the 2026 fiscal year, which is the basis
Okay.
for the requirement.
Yeah. And the regulatory, like ratcheting down the amount when they start going from, I think, 55 gallons a day down to
I think it's 50 and then 40.
47 and then
47,
42.
yeah.
Yeah, it keeps ratcheting down. In
Yeah.
2020, goes from 55 today, the 2030, it's 50, then it's 42 at some point in
Yeah.
2035 or something. And then there's one final sort of irrigation tweak that happens in 2040.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from the board? Okay, anything from the public?
Yeah, Mike Neal again. So I keep hearing recycled water coming up. It comes up often. One of the worries, I guess, that I hear and I think about it, I have to agree. So taking recycled water and treating that to a degree very reliably, more like 100% of the time, so that it's safe before you put it in the ground, because you get any kind of contamination injected into that aquifer, now it's like an infection in your body. It's going to contaminate the whole thing, and you're going to have big problems. So I trust that any move towards that and using recycled water to go back down into the ground, we're going to find a hyper reliable system and method of cleaning that stuff up to drinkable quality before we ever put it back in the ground at all.
That's required, Mike, and it does have to be monitoring wells to check it as well as we inject.
Very strict regulations on that.
All right, anything else from the public on item 9.1? All right, do we have the, it's ready to go.
I know, just in time.
Okay,
right?
just in time. Okay, cancel that call to Chris. Okay, okay. So report on water losses, consumption and production.
Okay, so I put together a few slides, just to let you guys know, there's an annual report that we have to do to DWR. And there is an entire AWWA manual, as you can see here, on how to do all these reports. So, every year, we've been doing this now since fiscal year 16-17. And currently the requirement is by January 1st of every year, we have to have the report done to the state. So they consider us, we are an urban retail water supplier. They are the ones that are required to complete this spreadsheet and report every year. Anyone that has more than 3,000 connections or produces more than 3,000 acre feet per year. And each audit has to be validated by it's an AWWA certified water loss validator. So we have to hire a water loss validator every year to review all the data with us. So you can go to the next slide. So what is included in the water audit? There's very specific info that you have to provide. Most importantly, water supplied, water consumed, and then there's calculations of what your water losses are. So your water supplied is water from your own sources, and we do correct. There's a correction that's done to that using meter testing accuracy. And then there is authorized consumption. That's our billed metered, billed unmetered, and then they have unbilled metered and unbilled unmetered. So there's quite a few different categories there. Most of ours is billed and metered. And then there's your water losses, and your water losses are broken down into apparent losses, which are non-physical losses, and your real losses. Your real losses are the ones you think of most of the time as a leak. Okay. So your non-physical losses are those like customer meter inaccuracies, unauthorized consumption, so water theft, and just systematic handling errors in the data and such. And then your real losses are those that are like physical water losses, so leaks. There's also other things that go into the audit, and that's district costs and finances and a review of our pressure. System water pressure is also part of that. So then they break it all down, and this is just a screenshot from the spreadsheet. And so I don't expect you to be able to read that, but there is a grading on each item. There's a process you go through where you rank and you get a grade on how well you, let's say, meter the volume from your own sources. Are your meters, what type of meter it is, and is it recorded every day, and is it tested every year, and all that kind of stuff. So everything has a grade, and then you get down to what your losses are. Our biggest, one thing we've done right now is, I have to put my reading glasses on so I can read this, is the customer meter inaccuracy is a default right now because we don't have we don't test enough of the customer meters to get a really good idea. So if you've noticed in my monthly report that goes to the state, I've used that 5% default number. So if we find next year, if our auditor feels that we can change that number, then I will change that number monthly also. We will be doing this again this fall. We'll be going through this audit. It is based on a fiscal year. So for instance, last year, our real losses, our leaks, were 205.6 acre feet, which is 66 million gallons of water. There's various graphs that get created from this, but they also break it down in another way, which is this next slide. So you'll see it, broken down again, and you kind of get to what's considered your non-revenue water loss. So, and that is the biggest part of what you can get a handle on, is where are you losing your water to, and what is this lost revenue, and where is it coming from? So go to the next one, Lauren. So the biggest one here in red is our customer meter inaccuracy. And it's been this way, ever since we started doing our water loss. So it's kind of one of the reasons that we've started replacing the older meters, try to get a better handle on that, because the water audit validator said, hey, this is where you're losing most of your revenue and from your lost water. So I know Ty's department, they went back, started to take a look at how old the meters really were. And we thought we had, I think we kind of thought they were newer than they really were. Most of them were. So we're kind of surprised that we had quite a few that were over 20 years old. So now they've been systematically going through and replacing all those, and they're just going to be something that's just ongoing all the time. And hopefully that number will improve and we won't have as much non-revenue water loss. Let's see. And then they have, they put you like into different tiers. You can go to the next one. So this is all just part of the water audit process. You have a validity tier, and then they give you some areas to focus on. So if you're in, like, we're in tier 3, and, one of the things is establishing ongoing mechanisms for customer meter accuracy testing, active leakage control, long-term, to establish some goals for long-term real loss reduction, things like that. So we're kind of right in the middle there. It's not like a grade where you would think, an ABC, well, you're at 70, you must be a C and you're an average, but very few water districts are going to fall in that, really top tier where they're just excellent at everything. So you do the best you can with, the budget you have. And we go through this every year. So if you have any questions, if you want to see anything more in the future, just let me know.
Now,
Yeah.
all this is a program where you populate it with the numbers.
Yes,
You don't have to
it's-
recreate
It's an
everything.
AWWA, American Water Works Association required spreadsheet that you have to enter certain data.
Okay.
And the more, accurate you can get on that, the better.
So,
And then the auditor goes through every single number with you on how you measured it, how you got it. how it
actually, you
was
have to have it
done.
approved by an official water.
Yes,
Law-
validator. And
Val-
they make
validator.
suggestions to you every year
Yeah.
where they think you could make some improvements and
Okay.
and the state does like to see you making progress and things every year in one of those areas.
I liked your report. I thought it was well done, very easy to understand, but I do have a question about the losses from the meters. That's a high number in
Mhm.
dollars, almost $500,000 from the meter section. And how do we address that? I mean, that's a loss of revenue right there.
Right, so we started a program, it's been 3 or 4 years ago, of replacing the meter bases. We find as time goes on, because it's a mechanical unit, they slow down.
Okay.
We've found meters in the ground from the late 70s and the 80s, which is well past the 20-year average lifespan of a meter.
Okay.
So there's 2 parts. Right now, we're replacing the meter bases with like meter bases.
Okay.
We have met with Neptune, who provides our meters, and they have it's an ultrasonic meter that has far better accuracy, no moving parts, so it has a longer lifespan. So as soon as we run out of our current meter bases, I think it's only like $10 or $20 more a meter base. We are moving towards those new ultrasonic meters.
So it's a long-term fix.
It is a
Obviously,
long-term
you can't go out and
fix.
change,
Right.
12,000 meters.
Yeah, right. And our plan is, when we get caught up, we're gonna go on a 20-year cycle of every year we're replacing 500 meters. That way we can always stay up
Okay.
with making sure our meters are within their lifespan.
Is that number been, the loss in dollars, that number been consistent the last few years? Is it gone up, gone down?
Because we don't know exactly how much we're losing to the meters, that's the placeholder, that 5%.
Okay.
So Ron, I did an analysis over about the last 10 years, and percentage wise, it's 8% plus or minus 1 or 2%. So it's fairly consistent, where we've been. And that's just sort of like your total water loss.
Right.
And so it doesn't seem to be trending one way or the other. It kind of has up years and down years. And, we're
Well, I definitely like to
trying
see
to,
the
we're
meter
trying,
go
the
down.
goal is to get it to start trending downward is what we want to do. But it doesn't seem like we're seeing a big spike or anything. It's just what it is. And now we gotta,
And
take
I,
steps
yeah,
to-
and I have one more question. I'll turn over the rest of the board. Is one of the categories there was water that people are basically taking. Okay. Where do you get that number? How do you estimate that, or where does that come from?
Pretty sure
I think the
That
state
is
just
an
gives you a
estimate.
number that they've assumed.
it's 1/4%. It's a
Okay, so
default number.
it's a number that is just,
It's
yeah,
a regulatory number. They just say, use this much for theft.
okay.
Yeah.
It could be more, it could be less. In reality, we don't know what it
Right,
is.
theft
Yeah.
does happen. We've
Okay.
seen it where people are filling up at hydrants when they're not
Oh, yeah.
supposed to, but to track how much.
Right.
I guess
Okay.
I'll know.
All right. Rest of the board, Mallory?
So thank you. That was a great presentation, Renee, and good insights. I remember years back, we talked about this, and this 5 to 8% number of estimated losses or measured losses compared very well with a lot of the communities in California, particularly in Southern California. I remember hearing numbers like in the 30s percentages in some areas like LA. I don't know if those are true or not, but those were certainly tossed around. And so I think we've done a pretty good job here locally, and it makes logical sense to me that given that the meters uh, do drop off in performance over time. I've had meters myself that I've had to replace that were just junk. They weren't measuring water flow at all. Um, so, I know that happens, and so I think that puts us on a path, long-term path for recovery, and I appreciate the effort to identify that and put action in place to do that. But I'm done with the grandstand. Uh, I'm curious, have we collected this data long enough that we can start seeing trends as to whether it's getting better or getting worse, or is it pretty much staying the same, or is it too early, or?
We're probably about 3,000 meters into our 12,000 meters as far as meter-based replacements. We have seen some efficiencies and some better collection on that. So it's real early, but with
Mhm.
positive signs.
Okay, good.
I mean, we're some of the meters, just to give you an idea, we're pulling out from the late 70s, early 80s that we sent off a few to be tested to see kind of what the average is, and they're testing at 60 to 80%. So we are losing on those older meters, absolutely.
Okay.
So,
And I assume if we've got chronic water losses in our pipelines, like I've seen in the past, we fix it, right? We don't
Mhm.
just let it sit there and dribble, and so it's
yeah.
not a whole.
I think as we make progress in replacing more of the meters, then the water audit validator will probably recommend kind of, lowering that percentage number.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Stan?
Yes, I'm the one that asked for this to be on the agenda. The motivation was when I looked at our production numbers over the last few years and the distribution numbers over the last few years, the numbers were always between, the high 400 acre feet per year, typically more like 500 to 600 acre feet per year. And that's the total between the pumping and the distribution. And then I got to thinking is that from a replenishment fee standpoint, that's roughly $1 million that we're paying in replenishment fee for our losses. And so I appreciate everything. I didn't really necessarily expect you to go to all this work. What I was more interested in is there a way to mitigate the expenditure of $1 million a year in replenishment fees by trying to figure out a methodology that's going to get us to reducing that $1 million down to something less quicker than we're doing now. I mean, I understand that we're currently in like the 4th year of replacement. And I guess what I'm curious is there some, I don't know, first of all, how you pick which meters, that we want to take out. My feeling is, or replace, my feeling is looking at meters that normally stay in tier 1 probably is not where we're going to do the most savings, have the most savings. It's where perhaps the oldest meters and the areas where the most pumping, or the highest usage is done. And I was curious whether or not we have gotten some type of a technique or methodology for replacement that comprehends the fact that some meters are going to have more loss than others, so that we make hopefully more progress in reducing the losses quicker. I think is kind of where I was motivated to look or think about. And I was curious. If
Yeah,
you could give me-
currently, the way we're doing it is we're looking at the age of the meter. So, and then we're going by route. So anything that's older than 20 years, we're replacing by route. that our guys know the routes. That way they know which ones need to be replaced and they can go knock them out because they're in the same
You
area.
know, and
Most
I
bang for your buck.
appreciate the fact that the route's probably the cheapest. I mean, that's probably the most expeditious in terms of replacing the most, but it seems to me that looking at the meters that use the most water, I mean, if somebody's got a 5 or 10% loss rate in his meter, if he's only using a tenth of an acre foot a year, we're not going to save much. If he's using an acre foot a year, then that would be a much larger savings. So I guess all I would like to do is ask George to review what we're doing in terms of selecting which meters to replace in which order, to see if there isn't a way that we could maximize our savings rather than just go route by route. Because when I look at paying $1 million a year for replenishment fee, that just kind of gnaws at me.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I just want to make a quick point, or really a question too, to verify that loss also would include any fire service that was used, anything like, because none of that's tracked. And then usually when a meter errors, it's on the slow side. It's not, you know, if a meter's broke, if it's low flow, that's usually when it's going to be the issue in my experience. So it would be hard to pick somebody that had a high usage and say, well, their meter's broke, so let's go check that. So I know previously we were changing out the 5/8 meters to 3/4. And so we went through that process. But I don't know, Stan, how you could isolate which meter was bad unless you.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting that we try to do that. What I was suggesting is that instead of, that is, if we looked at the oldest meters and the meters that have the highest flow rates, because of the wear on those would be higher over a period of 10 or 20 years, that would give us, would maximize our reduction. But you're right. There's no point in trying to guess, but you have to have some type of a methodology and say, we're going to do this,
Yeah.
rather than try to guess. No, I wasn't suggesting that at all.
Well, I'm just concerned because, like I said, the fire hydrants. Can you guys give us an update? The city, who all do we charge to use the fire hydrants? I know contractors get charged, but if there's a fire or any type of emergency service, none of that. I mean, they don't have to meter. It's all just district provided water that we pay a replenishment fee on, but it's for the benefit of the community. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if a meter, you wouldn't know if a user would normally be a high user if their meter is reading low. If it was accurate, they could be a higher user. So they could be a low user because their meter is inaccurate.
And Director Griffin is right.
So
The way the nutating disc works, the higher the flow, the more likely it is to read accurately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even on a new meter, the accuracy drops off on a low flow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Except the
yeah.
new.
Well, I guess, I mean, what I was thinking, we have all the billing data, so we know who's using how much water. So we know where the high flow rates are. I mean, I
What,
didn't think that would be an issue.
but the fee we're paying to the groundwater authority is based on what's pumped out of the ground, not what's metered at
Yeah.
the residence.
Yeah, so like, Renee, correct me, how much of the sort of real water losses are attributed to inaccurate meters? What was that percentage? Was that with the largest piece? We might have to go back a slide or two.
It is the larger piece, yes.
So what we did is we picked the biggest component of water loss, which is
Yes.
meter inaccuracies, and we're tackling it in the most systematic, pragmatic way that we can. I can say when we listen to some of the sales pitches from some of the different meter manufacturers about how accurate their meters were and how well they read at low flow, they told us about Alhambra or somewhere bought 60,000 meters in one shot. We're going to replace all of them. I just don't think we have the ability to buy,
Mhm.
5,000 meters or 7,000 meters and put them in. So we're going to do the best we can with the staff. I think I like the plan they came up with. I think it's pretty solid. I think it's going to get us there. It's not going to get us there in 1 year or 2 years, but it keeps us there indefinitely if we keep on it.
Okay, so we're in our fourth year now.
Mhm.
How many years do we envision? Because,
20
I mean, there's
it's a
a
20-year
minimum of
replacement cycle.
20-year shelf life or use life.
Gonna keep starting
And if we
over.
go to the better meters, it's 30 years. So, I mean, what do we envision as the number of years before we
So
get to?
The manufacturers told us that generally their meters are
20 years.
guaranteed for 15 years or 20 years.
15 years and the life is 20
A
years.
15 years guarantee and then life of 20. So we use that 20 year as our replacement frequency. So in 20 years, we'll get back to replacing the meters. And, in 20 years from now, maybe we'll have meters that last 50 years and we'll go to a 50-year cycle. But as we get better technology, but right now we're
But-
working on that
okay,
presumption.
So right now, we're envisioning having, if we're in year four, we're going to go 11 more years before we have all the meters replaced once.
We won't have all the meters.
If we're in year four, it'll be another 16 years and we'll have all the meters replaced, then we'll start over and then we just keep going. So it's a perpetual program. You're always replacing 1/20th of the
Yeah.
meters.
And if it wasn't for the replenishment fee, it wouldn't be a big deal,
Yeah.
but we, realistically, we do have the replenishment fee.
Yeah.
So we do need to keep that. And I'm assuming that what I was wondering is, could we throw more money into it for 2 or 3 years and get all of them done quicker?
I just don't think we have the contract. We certainly don't have the in-house capacity to do that. And we probably aren't in a position to do that by contract right now, I don't think.
Yeah, from both a funding and a staffing point, yeah.
I have a quick question, Renee.
Okay, well, you understand my.
Totally get it.
Right,
But,
okay.
but it, just to clarify, the replenishment fee is on the pumping side, not the consumption,
Yes, I don't know how more accurate meters are going to reduce our pumping fee.
other than bigger bills for some people and they may reduce their usage.
That's
Maybe.
what we're thinking, is if you could
Maybe.
capture those losses, you would end up with a net, you'd have more
Right.
income coming in, but
Yeah.
there's no simple way without spending millions of dollars to get there quicker.
Yeah, because what would happen is if you improve these meters, where we're not losing this, you're still pumping the same amount of water. You're just not you're billing for it all.
Yeah.
Where does firewater fall? Does it fall under real losses or unbilled, unmetered, authorized consumption?
Unbilled, unmetered.
Okay,
It's authorized, but unbilled,
it's a
unmetered.
small amount. Yeah,
Yes.
it's very small. Okay. Any other questions for the board before I turn to the public? Any questions or comments from the public? We're moving on.
Let's just take a minute. Mike Neal again, from an engineering point, if I've heard right, I heard Mr. Bertora say that he thought this loss was costing us $1 million a year. Doing it with, existing staff is clearly going to be a slow process. There should be a trade-off looked at as to paying a contractor to bring in the labor to replace meters. And how many of those could you get for, say, $250,000? And how many meters could you get replaced? How much revenue would you recover? That shouldn't be real hard to do. I think it's an exercise that you ought to go through if it's that much money. And, if you can spend $250,000 1 year paying a contractor to replace a bunch of meters, and you can claim that you recovered $500,000 in revenue, then you've basically made money that year. And then the next year and the next year and the next year, and you could speed up that process and retain back that. I mean, $1 million is not insignificant for when 1 year's time period. So I suggest looking at that as far as getting the contractors to come in and do some meter, bulk, large scale meter replacement. They ought to be able, I mean, you'd have to suss it out, but they'll be able to get a lot of meters replaced for that much money.
I
So
just
Mike-
want to clarify something, because I think we're having two two
yeah.
interpretations of the replenishment fee and where it's coming from. So, Ty, are we paying a replenishment fee on this water that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so would there be a $1 million savings, or can you explain so we all understand and the public understands? Because I want to make sure that everybody's clear and my head's clear too, please.
Would there be a savings? That it depends on the usage of the customer that we replace the meter on. If after we replace the meter, they decided to consume less water, then there would be a savings on the
There.
generation side.
And if
Or-
nothing changed, they would pay more money into the
They would
district.
pay more
So either, the way you get the money is you get a more accurate meter, they use more
Correct.
water, their bill goes up, and we collect more money, which means the difference between produced and sold decreases, and that closes the gap on that. I'll say, Ty, how much is one meter? We looked at that. It was 200? What was it?
$270, $280.
So I'll just tell you, so 7,000 meters is almost $2 million just for the meters, just so you know. That's about what we would need. And then the contract to install it would probably be another $3 million. So it gets pretty, I'm just doing engineering math up here, on the fly, but it's about $2 million just to buy enough meters to replace all the normal house meters that we have. And then you'd have to have a contractor, and since it's individual sites you have to go to, it would get pretty pricey.
And the true revenue loss is strictly what I'm seeing here, about $400,000.
Yeah.
If every meter worked perfectly, we recoup that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 450,000. Yeah.
50,000, okay.
And we didn't have any leaks. or
Right,
anything
leaks and
else.
things. I'm just talking about that one that's
Yeah, leaks
customer
aren't
metering.
counted in that.
Basically 300.
But it is the point well taken, and we'll run some numbers, and we'll do a cost breakdown and figure out what's the payback. If we replace the ball, would it be a 1 year, 2 year, 5 years? Probably around 10 or 15 year payback is probably what it ends up being.
Judy Decker.
Okay.
Okay,
I think the methodology that Ty has come up with is the absolute correct one to use. The district is, got some financial issues that they didn't anticipate a year or two ago, like the pipeline project. And who knows what the future holds. I suggest you keep on with what Ty's doing. It's accurate, it's methodical, and it will get the job done.
thank you. Any other comments from public? Nobody? All right, with that, we'll move on to the 9A, which is basically just a general discussion. I don't know how long we want to carry this on. This is the portion of the workshop where the board says, hey, here's my goals. And I typically, what I hear at the workshop from the board members, it's a pretty short goal, what we want to attain. And then, of course, it's also from the staff and the general manager. So I'm going to ask first whether you guys have prepared anything for this, or I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I know that.
We just wanted the board's feedback if there's anything they think we're missing.
Oh, you're turning right back to us. No, I don't expect that.
So I think our goals, clean water at affordable prices, constantly make the system better, keep our maintenance up, all the normal things you would expect. I don't think we need to repeat them. We talk about them almost in every meeting, one of those goals. But if there's some big gap or something you guys think that we're not checking the box on, let us know.
Project goals from the staff of any kind that they want to see attained in some given time?
Meter replacement.
There you go. That was my goal. You took that from me. Okay.
Pipeline replacement.
Oh, and so if that's it, how about from the board? Do they have any personal goals that they'd like to see attained in next year?
I didn't come specifically prepared to discuss this particular item in this meeting.
Okay. Stan?
I got, something that I've brought up numerous times that I think we've all agreed to is the fact that we need to hit harder the recycled water issue. We know that Vince Fong has indicated that he's in favor of the imported water pipeline primarily because we have no alternative. Well, in my mind, we have an alternative. We just haven't publicized it. what we need to do. And the only reason we haven't made any progress on the recycled water is the fact that the city won't cooperate with us in any way, shape, or form. And we've sort of allowed them to get by with that. And my feeling is it's more of a political policy issue than anything technical at this point in time. But I think we need to put a major push forward at George's level and our level to start making some progress on the recycled water.
Thank you. Chuck?
I have none.
I'm not going to pontificate on the recycled water. I agree with you. That's one of my goals. I've been talking about it for a number of years now.
Mhm.
It's that low
Yeah, we
hanging
both
fruit.
have.
We got to get after this recycled water. And the second one obviously is to find a way to make sure that we're the choice recovery area for any water when LAWP has to dump water, rather than just in various spaces. If we can find a way that we can handle it here, whether it's surface percolation, whatever it is, some way to make us the choice. Say, hey, if we got to dump water, that's the place we're going to dump it, because it's the ideal location in terms of not causing any problems throughout the rest of it. So those are my two goals, and I think we're working on those, but it's all slow going. I wish I could say it would go any faster, but definitely recycled water. That's on top of my list. And if I hear none other, nothing from the board, nothing from the public, we'll now move on to the current business, item 10, committee reports. This is a consent calendar and the approval of the board meeting minutes and accounts payable disbursement, approval of the minutes from July 8th, regular board meeting, July 18th, special board workshop, and to approval of the accounts payable disbursements. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, anybody from the public or the board? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. Thank you. And the motion passes. All right, Plant and Equipment Committee, Drinking Water Administrator Program Request for Qualifications. Staff to discuss with the board the prospect of the district becoming a drinking water administrator through the State Water Resource Control Board. I believe, Renee, is this in your park?
I think this one's mine.
Is that yours?
George,
It's kind of,
Or team?
it's a tag team. So
Okay.
I just wanted to start with a little bit of a broader overview because Renee is our technical expert, but to Renee Westerluck's question earlier, this board is not interested in taking over the Inyokern CSD. That should be made clear right up front. Neither is the staff of the Water District interested in taking over the CSD. However, with that said, they've had significant problems, and the state Water Resources Control Board and the local LAFCO office have had a long-term sort of standing state policy that they want to see consolidations occur and reduce the number of special districts that are out there, whether they be a CSD or us. And we are aware of that, and that's formalized state policy. We discussed the issues that were going on in Inyokern during sort of some of the emergency situations that they had. And both the state and LAFCO indicated to us that there's a possibility that they could, I don't want to say dictate, but they could make a very serious request with a lot of weight of the state and LAFCO behind it, that at some point a consolidation might need to occur with the CSD. I don't believe that's what they want. I don't believe that's what we want, but the state certainly has a say in it, as does LAFCO. What the state did was they said there is an application process before you could, the process for doing a consolidation in this manner, the first step is you designate someone as an administrator, and they're sort of an advisor, and they sort of manage contracts and help this district that may ultimately be consolidated in the future. Contractors can do this, other water districts can do this. And so we realized that the state was sort of encouraging us to fill out some paperwork that says, if it were necessary for the state to designate an administrator for the CSD, that we would have checked that box Not that we want to, not that the board wants to, not that the CSD wants to, but we'll be there if it has to be done. If that's what the state and the LAFCO designate as the solution to this, I believe it was a grand jury finding. So to that end, I tasked Renee, who's our expert, to sort of look into this. What does it take? And I'll turn it over to Renee. Do you want to sort of describe what that process looks like at this point? And
Yeah, there is a request for qualifications that the state puts out and that we would submit a statement of qualifications in various categories that you have to be, proficient in order to become an administrator, managerial, administrative, technical, operations, legal, all that kind of stuff. So once you become administrator, then you have specific requirements, and I included in the board packet the little handbook that they have so that the board would kind of know what you're getting yourself into once you become an administrator. I just wanted to point out that the costs that are borne by the administrator are covered by the state board, including any salaries, administrative costs, legal, and that even operations, maintenance, even planning and construction projects that might be required to meet water standards. So it does say that, subject to fund availability, that the state board may provide funding for construction and planning and ongoing operations and maintenance. So we would expect if we did become the administrator and there were certain things that had to be done to bring everything into compliance, that those costs would be covered. So if the board sees fit, we'll go ahead and submit a statement of qualifications so that if we are asked to become the administrator of either the Intercurrent CSD or perhaps another small system out there, that we would be set up already in the state system in order to do so.
And we're probably pretty close to qualified already. Just, you're going to be checking boxes and filling out some
Okay.
questionnaires and,
Well, it's a statement of qualifications, so we'd have to,
yeah.
honest,
answer
staff is
certain things.
highly overqualified for that role.
Yeah, you have to
Hope so.
explain how you're qualified in each category
Right,
and such. So
exactly. Okay. All right. My comment on this is first of all, it seems like when you got the State Water Resource Control Board and LAFCO both, and I'm not saying they're looking down our neck, but they're looking to us. And I don't see any reason to upset that apple cart. I don't want to give them any reason to think about us as someone's not ready to cooperate and work with them. So, and you answered one of my questions already, Renee, that if for some reason they were to come to us and say, we would like you to become the administrator out there, then anything that we need to perform out there, bad equipment, things like that, would be covered by the state. Of course, getting the money and applying for it, it's all two different things, because the reason I'm concerned here, it isn't just a simple system that is operating fairly well. In my opinion, what I hear about it, it will need a lot.
Mhm.
And I think that I would feel the goal of the State Water Resource Control Board would be to get them back on their feet using administrator if possible. And so as I see, I'm guessing here, George, correct me if I'm wrong, that the state board would say, okay, let's get an administrator in there to get them working the best we can, but we're not going to give up on the idea of consolidation. We're going to see if you walk in there and you say, wow, in order to make this work, we need new piping here, we need all new meters, this system has to be replaced, this system has to be replaced. I think the state might be considering another option. That's just my opinion. So with that, I don't see any problem with us becoming a drinking water administrator. Yeah. And rest of the board, Mel?
So I agree. I think it's premature for us to push back on this, which will likely become a request, if not a requirement. So better to do it in advance where we've got time to work it and really understand what the implications are, and then be prepared to actually have that next level of discussion, though, if we do get pressure
Right.
to consolidate. I think we need to probably talk a little bit more about the implications of that, because it's not, I think there's probably a lot of
Oh, yeah.
a lot of impact there that we may not fully understand. While we're on this topic, I wanted to take the chance, and I'm sure you have probably already done this, and I know George probably has, but thank you very much, staff, for what you did. You saved that community. I mean, we've supplied water, we responded right away. We were the only ones, to my knowledge, that was mustered up. to
We were the
actually
first
help
ones out
resolve
there,
the
yeah.
Problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was appropriate that we did, but we did it in a very professional way and a compassionate way. And I'm glad that we did that. It sends a good tone back to LAFCO and the state regarding, the future where this is going to go. So anyway, thank you very much. Made me proud.
Okay. All right, Stan, do you have anything? Oh, last
yes.
thing, what's your recommendation that we move ahead with that?
I think we should
Okay.
be prepared. It's too early or it's premature for us to push back on this right now.
Right.
So it seems like the amount of effort to prepare ourselves to be the administrator, as Renee's already made a big dent in,
Yeah.
is probably
Okay.
good time we're spent.
Great. All right, I'm sorry, Stan, go ahead.
I would agree with the remarks that have already been said. But I would like to add that my feeling is that Inyo Curd is our neighbor, and if we can be neighborly, we should. But with two caveats. One is we need to be careful about how much work we dump on our staff.
Right.
And the second, and if it gets, out of hand, what we need to do is the staff make George aware of whatever problems they have so that we can make adjustments however we need to. The second thing is I want to be very careful that what help that we provide in doing this, that the funding for it not be charged to our ratepayers,
Right.
or at least very minimal amount of money to charge to our ratepayers, because our ratepayers are not paying for this. If the state wants us to be helpful, that's fine and up to a point. But again, if the funding or the money starts running into a point where it's of any significant value, I would like to have George come back to the board and alert us to what problems there might be. But other than that, I would agree. Yeah, let's pursue it for now
Yeah.
and see where it leads. And it's premature to make any decision of whether to fully go with it or to push back. I think we need a lot more information.
Before I go to you, Chuck, I'll make a comment or I'll probably forget it.
Okay.
Based on what Stan said, is keep in mind, you're absolutely right. They're not in our district. So both legally and morally, we can't spend our district's money on them. So any of this administration, even if it resulted in having additional personnel to handle it, all that would have to be covered by state. From what I understand, that we could submit all that and say, here's what we need to make this happen. But what I don't want to be is, you're right, we can't be on the hook for it. It's got to be through them. And I'll make one other comment on consolidation, which Director Boyd, you probably didn't hear this, is that if consolidation was ordered, because it may be, that what the state would be would supply is, I believe it was $65,000 per connection. 60. I think you corrected me twice now. 60. It's like my age. So $60,000 per connection to get the system in. What are you laughing at? Okay, just so you know, because you weren't here for that. Okay. All right, Chuck.
Yeah.
Any comment?
No, I just wanted, I agree also. I think that it's important that we get this in place. That way we do have a funding mechanism that we could turn to, as you guys mentioned. I will repeat again, I sure don't want to take anything over from
Right.
the CSD. But if they need help and we have to, I think we need to be prepared and be on board to do that. So
Okay.
I support it.
All right. With that, any comments from the public?
Judy Decker again. I want to relay something to you that I've heard. I know someone who well, actually, she worked there for about a week several years ago in the office. The problem with the CSD is not just their pipes and their lack of a meter and their lack of having a properly functioning well and a spare well. Apparently, their office is in shambles. The person that I talked to said records were kept in boxes everywhere. There was no ledger of how much money was taken in or given out. There was no record of anything. They didn't even have a cash register. And this was just a few years ago. So in dealing with the CSD, it's easy to talk about replacing pipes and putting in meters and hoping you don't get shot while you do it. And fixing a well or two.
That's next.
But the records in the office are apparently in shambles. And if you recall, Mal and Stan, CSD started around 1984, I believe. And I guess it's been that way for the last 40 years. So that's something to take into consideration and investigate also.
Thank you, Judy.
That was part of the grand jury report too. They did point that out. Yes.
And that's an important aspect of
Yes.
being an administrator, is to bring good governance
Okay.
to a district. I mean, and governance is financial, yeah, it's the financial, it's the legal, it's complying with regulations. It's the whole thing about governance.
When you
It's not just
administrate,
fixing pipes and.
It's everything.
It is.
From the office on down to the user. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Mike?
Yes, a note of caution here. I heard a word Renee used that I have come to realize is something you need to pay attention to situations like this. And she said, well, it was regarding the cost of pulling all this off, is that the state may reimburse or may provide funds. That needs to be a shall. If it's not a shall, then what you're doing is you're sticking your foot down in something that once you're in it, you can't pull out of that. If you start renovating that system and helping provide water to people, and then find out it's cost this district a lot of money, and the state is just, I mean, think about the financial condition our state is in. Newsom has taken us down a huge debt hole. So I don't know where they think the money's going to come from, because, they're borrowing it, or using funny money right and left or something just to keep things running. And I remember, years ago, I lived in Richcrest Heights towards the end of the Stark water system. And some of you guys may remember that, but that kind of provided water, and it was cheap. It was a flat rate, but it wasn't run well and had to be taken over. Basically, the water just took it over. They didn't just patch and fix up the old lines. They went down the middle of the street and put in all new water mains, new meter feeds, everything else out there, and got it up to what it should have been. It cost a lot of money to do that. And from what I hear about this system and how long it's been in probably barely functional condition, to get it taken care of is going to take a lot of money. And if the state doesn't definitively commit to providing the funds for that, then you could get sucked down this hole where the district ends up funding and paying and using staff, all kinds of staff time and everything else. So Mr. Worth needs to, earn his pay here and make sure that the state's not going to suck us into a situation where we get cemented into a position where we're committed, we have to do it, and it's just going to cost us a lot of money.
Correct, Mike, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd be breaking a code. Basically, we can't use the money we collect from the district to benefit something outside the district, or what I call gift of funds outside the district.
That's right, but I've already advised the board that some of the recent consolidations are drafted just the way Mr. Neal has described them, may pay you back absent. It's my understanding, I haven't seen the contract, it's my understanding that the money for what's going on in Yo Kern comes from a different
Yes.
fund. It's a fund to address systems in immediate need. So I don't think that's going to be an issue like it is in some of the other consolidations. But, noted, Mr. Neal.
I have a question for Jim. So the first step, if this were to move forward, is a LAFCO recommendation that the water district boundaries be expanded to include CSC.
There's a recommendation that is due from LAFCO on October 1st.
Yeah, we're-
There's
So
four
how
different
much,
options.
how much weight does their recommendation have? If we disagree with that, can we say, no, we don't want the district boundaries to be expanded?
Oh, I think their weight carries more than ours does.
Yeah, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. here. Yeah.
They are trying to consolidate systems and they're very much aware. I don't mean to be on Inyo, but through discussions with the state and LAFCO, they're very much aware that it's been a dysfunctional CSD for quite some time now, which is why we're trying to be prudent and get ahead of the game. Oh, that's all we're doing right now. It's just getting ahead of the game. These other questions, we're going to get more information as we move forward. Did I answer, Mal? You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, Judy?
Well, since I'm your history, I was on the board when the water district purchased the Stark system, and they did purchase the system from Mr. Stark at the state's strong urging. However, they formed an assessment district with the people that lived within the boundaries of the Stark system. And those people paid for their water lines and their water meter improvements via an assessment.
And Judy, I'll make a quick comment of what we've been told by the state and LAFCO. And generally, if the CSD chooses to remain independent, which is an option, they will have to go down that road. The state will not give them
Good.
grant money. And this is one of the reasons that we are waiting what they've decided. If they go that route, they're going to have large costs to pay back. That will be put on their taxes and other things. If they go down the route of a consolidation, then the state says that the state money will flow through the SAFER program. And if anybody's interested in what that is, Renee is becoming somewhat of an expert on the SAFER program and learning the
Right.
nuances of that program, but that's what that program was created to do.
All right. I just wanted to point that out for history's sake, that they did form an assessment district, which in my book is a proper way to go with things such as taking over other districts, excuse me, not districts, other water systems that need serious repair. The property owners should pay for it.
There was an
Thank you.
assessment district on
One-
Inyo Kern CSD in the late 90s when they replaced all the pipeline. That's the one where people fell off the tax rolls and weren't paying on it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's a lot of,
They originally got some sort of either really low interest loan or grant from the state to form the CSD in the first place.
And that's what they were paying for. So
And
they've
we know people that used to live there. They moved away from there because there were vacant mobile homes next to them on either side that squatters moved in. And there was no shut-off valve, so the people had water.
we do need to move on here. I mean, I think we've answered the
Um,
main question. I do see we have someone on the call, but go ahead, Stan, if you want.
Yeah, I would.
I don't want to get into a big
Well, I-
discussion about what may or may not happen
What-
yet.
What George said just a minute ago was one of the things that I picked up from the State Water Control Board as well, and it has to do with availability of grant money only if they consolidate. I've gone through and looked on the internet. I can't find anything that says a disadvantaged community can't get grant money unless they consolidate. But what it does is sort of force the CSD into making a decision before they really know what the problem is to some
Right.
extent. You can't get grant money unless you consolidate, but if you don't get grant, if you don't get grant money, then you're really screwed. So
All right.
I think we need to be
Well-
try to understand better what the issues and the options really are.
I think a lot of that's going to be happening in the next couple, 3 months, and we need to move on, and I'm not
Happening
trying to
real
cut you
quick
short.
is the problem.
Yeah, and it
I'm
may,
a
but-
little concerned that people aren't going to start making decisions based
But-
upon.
but the
wrong
point is-
information.
Is that this district can't be out of pocket to handle that issue over there. And it's simple as that. Now, if they want to look for grant, I mean, that's up to them. I don't want to get into the discussion about how that would work. I mean, we're way past where we want to be with this. We've already agreed that we're going to move ahead with the Drinking Water Administration Program. And I'd like to take I guess there's one call holding, and let's take that, and then we're going to try to move on.
Yes, this is Renee West Delusk. My question is, I went over the document briefly, but I didn't really go over it really carefully, but this you'd be appointed the administrator. Is there any wording that you can put in, like temporary? Like, are there such thing as a temporary administrator until everything's set up? Because it sounds like they have no administration at all, and you would have to set up their office and all that billing and have them do the reports that are required by the state and all that. I mean, that all has to be set up. What I'm asking is there a temporary administrator classification so that you wouldn't be permanently assigned?
I can answer that.
Yeah, George, go ahead.
Renee, the answer is yes. Administrators typically are. So we have an example up north in Keeler. Provost and Pritchard was made the administrator for several years. They went in, they did projects, they built a arsenic treatment plant, put all new pipes and connections in, and they came looking for someone who takes over. And that is the normal process. The question that is currently unresolved is we don't know if at the end of that process, we would be the administrator, we would not be. Those are questions we don't even know if we went that far, and we're way far beyond anywhere that we, other than knowing that that's a possibility in the future, there's really nothing else we can say.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Motion's in order to authorize staff to apply for the
Oh, we need a motion for that?
position of administrator. Yes,
Do
please.
I hear a motion for this?
I'll make
staff
the
to apply?
motion.
I'll second.
Your second then? And I guess I'll call, any comments, any more comments? I'll call for a vote. Thank you, Jim. And the motion passes. Thank you. Number 2, Redemacher Way Main Line Extension Notice of Exemption.
All right, so the district is working in concert with the Groundwater Authority to fund what we're now calling a Phase 1 project out there on Rademacher Way. So this Phase 1 would be the plans that we already have that were approved several years ago. It's 1,000 feet, more or less, of an 8-inch pipeline extension out there. So this is just for a couple of connections and couple of fire hydrants, and Phase 2 would be then extending this farther to the north and looping it around to Gordon Street so that we can get everybody who is connected to any of those wells out there with the high TDS and high arsenic off of those wells and get those wells destroyed. That's the goal that the Groundwater Authority wants to see everybody off of there. So this is just for the first phase.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Do we have a notice of exemption? Is that what we're?
Just
Well,
the
yeah,
authorize filing the notice of exemption or not?
Not yet. And
Okay.
I haven't talked to Renee about this yet, but
Oh,
we were moving pretty quick with the GA. Thought we might have a project there, but we do not have, although she's described what's going to happen, we still are dealing with costs,
yes.
cost reimbursement. We don't know for a fact that the GA's grant can be used 100% to put in the Rademacher replacements. There was some question with respect to the connection fees.
That was answered our last meeting that you missed. So yes, it will cover the connection fees. What it won't cover, and they're gonna find another way to cover it with another pot of money, is the service changeovers. So basically between the homes and the meters. That won't be covered by the grant, but they said they can get it. There's another organization that should be able to
Okay,
cover those
So,
fees.
so that said, it sounds like we would have a the project to come to the board in September for approval. And at that time that we would file the notice of exemption.
Oh, okay.
Generally file it right after, and that, the only reason we're filing the notice of exemption, it shortens the statute of limitations from 180 days down to 35 days.
Yeah.
No other
There
significant.
is still the matter of the agreement between the GA and the water
The
district also.
reimbursement
The
agreement,
reimbursement.
that's correct, and that should be ready by next, by September, and then we'll have the whole package in front of you. You can say yay or nay. If you say yay, then you'll also authorize us to do the notice of exemption next month.
There's
So,
there's no action here on this item.
no, we thought so, but no, we'll
Thanks,
just
Tim.
table it. Sorry about that.
No,
We're
that's
not done
fine.
tabling.
Well, we got a good
That's
update
the-
on
We'll
it.
table it the next month then.
So, yeah.
Correct.
So we'll table the notice of exemption until next,
Well.
next meeting or whatever meeting you have it ready. Okay, well, any comments from the public on this before I move on? Hearing none, we'll go on to C, Administrative Executive Committee. Oh, there we go. You're getting, okay. Executive Committee, Concealed Weapon Discussion. This is discussion on the
President?
policy.
Someone just raised their hand on the last item.
Oh, they did. Okay, we have a call holding on Redemacher.
Yes, I have a question on the timeline. How soon are you going to be able to do the main line extension to the Rademacher area?
Not be doing it.
The first phase, we're hoping to do this late fall, early winter,
How long will it take to complete?
probably a month, not very long.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee. All right, on to item C. This is a discussion of the CCW policy and action moving forward to, as we went through it in the workshop, we agreed how that would be handled, but however, I guess our handbook had something that needs to be updated. So bring that forward, whoever that may be.
I think this one's on me. So we did, I don't want to get in unless the board needs to. We had a fairly good discussion about this at the last time. The bottom line was the board's position was that they were going to take no action and impose no instructions upon customers or the employees with respect to whether or not they carried a concealed weapon. And instead, we're leaving it all under the jurisdiction of the state. There was a mistake made, came out of my office, and we did not see that there was a line in the personnel manual that prohibits the possession of firearms by an employee while on duty. So to be consistent, if the board has still of the same mind, I would need a motion to revise the personnel manual to remove the restriction of the use of firearms with respect to employees.
I have a quick question. You have to remove it. Can you just say non-permitted? In other words, so you're basically saying, but it's permitted, it's okay. But if it's, but can you still restrict the use of anybody? Let's say they don't have their concealed weapons permit and such. Can it be written in such a way that would say, if there's ever an employee out there, or?
It already is. If you're carrying a weapon
I see you're just going
without,
to,
you're
okay.
probably you're breaking the law for sure. And
So you don't need to state it in the policy,
No.
manual. That's fine.
Yeah,
The-
because
the gun-
it would be against the law for the person with the CCW to say they
Okay.
had a gun.
All right.
They couldn't
So-
state that they were carrying or
Okay.
show it in any way.
So modify as you
So
recommend.
I'll
that.
make the motion.
so, okay, and to be clear, it would read possession or use of alcohol while on duty at any district facility when you've taken out weapon, firearms, I should say.
Are you looking for an approval from the board tonight on this?
Yes?
Okay,
I'll make that
hang
motion.
on.
Could you not just exclude? I mean, taking it seems to me that would take out the requirement that anybody could have a firearm in, what I think, what my feeling is that we shouldn't do anything that would change what we've already decided with regard to the CCW, but not allow possession of a firearm by somebody who doesn't have a CCW.
That's not under our jurisdiction.
I believe we're
Stan.
following California law though, and
We're
It's
staying out
against
of
the
that.
law to have a firearm here if you don't have a concealed carry. You couldn't carry. So they would be breaking the law. That
It's
was
already
point.
the law, and it's the law of the state, which has more authority than the district does. My recommendation is to
So you're
remove.
saying
use-
it changes nothing, you're saying?
It changes nothing.
Changes nothing.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment that I'm in favor of this. I think the state, as restrictive as they are, probably has the tightest CCW requirements
Yeah.
around. And I'm not trying to applaud that, but all I'm trying to say is that those who might be worried about somebody who might be carrying a CCW in our spaces, whether it's a workforce or somebody coming in to pay their bills, has probably already been well vetted by the state and are probably very solid citizens that we shouldn't have to worry about them coming in and going crazy because they
No.
got a CCW.
That's right.
But I think it's equally important that people who have CCWs not be confronted with places they can't carry them. Because what happens when you run into that? We take it back out to the car and put it in your,
Yeah.
right? It's, you know, it's nonsense if the state is already, well, anyway, enough.
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, it's same discussion we had at the workshop, sort of. But, so you're making a motion to make the changes to the policy as Jim recommends?
Policies to meet the state requirements and remove that from our handbook.
I'll second that.
All right. Do I hear any more comments from the board? Anything from the public? I'll call for the vote.
Hit submit.
Is yours giving you trouble, Stan?
Ah,
He got it. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Move on to the request for office closure. I guess because where Christmas and New Year's falls, there's a circumstance here where the staff is requesting that, I don't have a calendar in front of me, that to close the office on Thursday, December 26th, and Thursday, the 2nd. So because when does the holiday fall? On the Friday?
Yeah, Wednesday.
I'm sorry, on the Wednesday.
So we
Yeah.
have every Friday off. So
Right.
you have a holiday on a Wednesday, then you have you'd go have Christmas on Wednesday, then you have to come back to work on Thursday, and then you're off again on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're just asking for that in-between day. It's something that happens very commonly in federal civil service,
Yeah.
where the president can decree that there's a, extra day holiday there. And so I think there's a fairly well-defined precedent that says this sort of thing is both allowable, and it just makes a lot of sense.
Especially for those who have family coming in or visiting family. So,
And the employees currently are afforded a half a day before either of those two holidays.
okay,
So
so
they would be giving that up in favor of the day off after
then you
both.
have the day off. Okay.
And there's no committee meetings. This wouldn't impact the
No.
January board meeting or any of that stuff.
Doesn't
So
look like it
it's-
will, no. All right. So any more discussion from the board on it? Do I hear a motion to approve that?
I'll move.
Okay,
second.
all right. Any comments from the public? With none, I'll call for the vote.
Giving me a holiday.
And it passes, so have a nice holidays. Let me know where you are. I'm gonna come by for some turkey
All
and
right.
instead. Wait a minute, I think I got promised cookies if this went through for the board members all the time, yeah. That's the next, that's the next one, okay, all right. We're on to item D, which is a resolution 2405. I'm gonna ask that this be tabled to a future meeting at this particular point. So I'd like to move on with that if we can, because I don't believe we have the resolution.
Do we need a second?
I don't think we need to vote on this. We just need to agree to we're going to table
Okay.
it till a future meeting. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item E, indoor heat illness prevention plan. Who's covering that one?
I can take it. So this is just a modification of our current heat illness prevention plan, which covers outdoor work. And this is at an addition of indoor work, and it covers, it's written mainly for foundries and things like
Right.
that, but it does cover tank work and anything with a ceiling and walls.
Okay.
So it's just a modification to our current policy, which states that we will monitor employees' health and welfare and keep track of the temperatures and heat indexes. And how, all of that written down somewhere in record keeping and just make sure that people are hydrated and that. we're
So first,
monitoring
first you have to do
along
is identify all the particular places, right?
Yes,
You
and
probably already
we
know
do
what
that-
they
that's in the
are.
policy and there is
And
written
then
down.
you'll have to check off the boxes for each of those places when anytime
We have,
anybody's
we
there.
have to, we have to check off the box. We have to say what kind of monitoring device we're using.
Okay,
Most of this is already covered on our confined space entry permit.
that's what I thought, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, what are you looking for from the board here? Just, are you just as information or do you need an approval? I'm sorry? Oh, it's in the policy, okay, all right.
I'll make a motion. Do we approve it?
I'll second that motion. Or I'll third that motion.
You'll third that motion. Is there any comments from the public or the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're towards the second. All right. I don't see any other comments, so I'll call for the vote on it. And the motion passes. Thank you. F, Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Chuck, anything to report there or where we're gonna head with that?
Well, my phone went dead, so I had a little thing written up, but I'll go from memory.
You can remember, can't you? You're not that old.
it- Do what? Well, there is no meeting this month.
Yeah.
It did get canceled, for lack of quorum, so we did get that notice, I believe, on Saturday. So the next meeting is scheduled for September 11th,
Mhm.
2024. Last month's meeting, as Renee mentioned, we did have a discussion about the consolidation. We talked about that, and that was important to every board member, I believe, that to try to get that on the consolidation list for the Rademacher Street. So I think that will be coming up. There was a couple of add-ons, change orders that were issued.
Right.
And then on their pipeline project, I did vote no on that. So,
Yeah, the change orders are pouring in.
yeah, they're coming in. So
Yeah.
there was an update on the model, and I was perplexed, to say the least. They changed, I asked the young lady given the report, she did a very good job, but it was interesting to me that they changed the flows in different areas and actually made the area in the El Pasos go down, as saying the recharge was less when actually the water's coming up in that area. And she said they did that and they credited it to Rose Valley, and they had to make that number match on the inflow. So, and I asked that question. I said, well, how do you just change the number to 300 acre feet and then add it up there? And she said, well, we had to make the number match the 7650. So that, it kind of perplexed me a little bit. So that bothered me a little bit, but they did go through that. The girl did a very good job giving her report. So that was good. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to report.
Okay, I want to go ahead and address Renee's Westeluk's question about the pipeline costs. That you have to understand is that because the GA was not doing what I call economic impact study on this, how it affected the area and our ratepayers especially, that the district decided to take this on. They started from the basis of using the numbers that were published by the GA. Then, of course, those numbers were looked at. Another set of professionals say, is there anything here that may have been missing, that may need to change, that may need to happen, that they forgot or didn't look at and such? And that's where our report came from. That report was turned over to the GA at least 2 weeks, if not more, before we actually brought it to the board for approval to ask for any comments they may have. I think it may have been longer than that. I'm not sure exact timing. But Director Griffin delivered it to them, and they had it in their hands. And the thing was, take a look at this, see if there's any numbers in here that you agree or disagree with or need to be modified, and let's sit down and talk and work through this together. And there was absolutely no response. So that's why we went with what we went. So that's how it came about. And so, yeah, so in our numbers weren't just pulled out of thin air. The basis of all those numbers was the original calculations and estimates done by the GA. Again, and we had to be enhanced for things that were left off, missing, or not included. So I know Renee's not calling in. I'm sure she probably will. So is there any other discussion?
I'd just like to add, not just to Renee, but to any member of the public. I can always make time for any member of the public who's concerned about the cost in that analysis and walk them through line by line, show them where we used the $207 million from the GA.
Right.
That we deducted from that, the $150 million from the WRDA grant that they were supposed to get, which they actually got 50 million. But we went ahead with the 150 million. And how these other aspects, you have to purchase water, you have to do maintenance, you have O&M, you have to hire people, you have to run, and really walk them through and show them. And we have offered that to the GA on numerous occasions. They have not taken us up on that, but that offer stands to anybody who's really interested in what that cost is.
And the
So
offer's
Renee,
still out there.
Feel free to come down here and I'll walk you right through it.
Okay. Any other comments about this, Indian Valley Groundwater Authority before I open it to public?
Yeah, I've got two comments. One is the fact that after the Rademacher pipeline extension consolidation is complete, there'll still be something between 2.5 and $3 million left of the state grant money. What Stetson has recommended that the GA do with that money is to give it to Stetson for planning. Now, quite frankly, my personal opinion is using $2.5 million to give to Stetson for planning is a waste of $2.5 million. I think they need to look at some additional options, including options provided by the water district to do something you can actually see some measurable improvement to our current situation, even if it's nothing more than extending some existing lines into an area that will someday need our water. So I would recommend to our district representative that you vote against the use of $2.5 million for doing planning, which I see, I see no value in it. My personal opinion.
I agree with you, Stan. That was brought up and they discussed that. I don't believe the whole 2.5 million they were talking about, but they were talking about allowing some for planning. They did come up with some planning in areas out towards, I guess it would be the Ridgecrest Boulevard, Mahan out a little further out through there, and they had Las Flores and those areas. And they were talking about doing consolidations in those areas. And I asked the question at that point, if somebody has a well and we put all this money in to consolidate, they may choose not to consolidate because they have a functioning well. And I don't think anybody that has a functioning well would want to be on the water district if they could. So I think there needs to be specific programs that are put in place, Stan, and I will listen each time they're brought up. And as long as I'm the rep, I will make sure that it's a project that is going to benefit somebody. I do believe this Rademacher is a good, it's beneficial.
No question. I was not questioning that at all.
Yeah, and
It was
I want to make
after
sure that
that.
each program, if there's money for consolidation, is for a well that is affected or the community that is being served can be bettered, and that's what I want to make sure. So I don't think any of the money, I don't think we need to put a bunch of money into planning, like you said. I agree with you, but I will make sure that my vote only goes towards betterment of a system that's in place, or like as this one is, there's the lack of.
I can add a couple
Right.
of things.
And
In my conversations with Stetson, the intention is to always first know how many people really want to hook up. You're
Correct.
not going to just put infrastructure in without having future customers. And they're also looking at the area out there south and west of the Dune 3 consolidation that we're going to be doing so that they can continue with feeding some other little small systems out there. So.
And I agree with you, Stan. I think that when you talk about Stetson spending money for planning or study or whatever it may be. It's really that, it's just really just identifying an area that's potential. That shouldn't take a whole lot.
Hmm.
Because if there is any consolidation, they got to work directly with the water district so it meets the standards and requirements of our system. So for them to sit and design a system isn't the way it should happen. So I agree with you. It ought to be hard money spent for hard projects that benefit.
Judy Decker, I was at that meeting and I brought up when this issue came up with Stetson, talking about consolidation, that before they do that, they need to take a good look at what consolidating all these little wells is going to do to the water district, which will have to provide more water to replace all these little wells, especially the area between Las Flores and Inyo Kern Road, Mahan and Jack's Ranch Road. There are a lot of domestic wells there. There are a lot of domestic wells where you have one well that serves 4 different homes. And what good is it to consolidate and take away a general area where the water is being drawn down at more or less an even rate by these well owners and have them forced into getting water from one place? And the same holds true of the other area. And I noticed, by the way, Renee, where they had the line going down Welcome Way east of Strecker, it just dead ended. And I know the district loves dead end lines.
Okay, I had a
sure.
second comment on the GA. And as I noticed also they had modified the model. But in the end, even after they had done everything to the model, they still had not balanced the aquifer. And to me, it appears that they're confusing safe yield with recharge. And that's why it's going down at the rate of the ET. So I think they've still got a theoretical issue with that. Not big one, but they still got to balance it, and they haven't.
All right, any comments before I go to public? Mike?
Yes. Mike Neal. So it continues to be interesting how the GA, having years ago, declared that the recharge of the basin was 7850 acre feet per year. And now they look at it, and this little thing you were talking about, looking at the El Paso sub-basin, they just take it and massage the numbers to make sure it still fits 7850. Nothing objective, nothing, correct. Let's not do this right and get the numbers right. Just stick to the plan. Stick to the plan that was in place in the first year that GA ever existed. And now what do we see? We see numbers thrown at them, numerous studies all consolidated together, taken and looked at, saying, well, your recharge rate's way low. Well, your storage amount is way, way low. And no response, huh? Well, surprise, surprise, because that upsets their little apple cart and the little direction that this body wanted to go forward with from the very first day. They need to be pushed in this. What I hear about the adjudication case continues to be of high interest. It's too bad that we have to go through 10 years of court action to get that all fixed. But when you have an agenda that's just hard fixed and all but one member on it is willing to look objectively and say, well, this isn't right, we shouldn't do this. This is what you get to do. You get to go to court, spend millions and millions of dollars, make all kinds of lawyers way richer, take it out of our pockets, our rate, it's coming out of the ratepayers. We get to pay for it all. And finally, someday, maybe get it right.
Thank you, Mike. I see we have a call holding. Caller?
Yes,
Right.
this is Renee West-Delusk. I just want to bring up that at the last Groundwater Authority meeting, there was agenda number 9, and it was funding status. It was a funding status interconnection pipeline project. It was an update. and it was written by Capital Core Group. The group that the GA has hired to seek funding for all kinds of projects for the GA. And I just want to say about that $50 million that there isn't really coverage for because the WRDA grant only pays for 75%. There is a statement in the report on the second page. It's like the last one, and it says, this level of funding will get us a third of the way into the construction phase and may even halfway through if local matching funds and or state grants are obtained during the early phase. So there's a possibility to get more funding to pay for that 25% that the WRDA grant doesn't pay for on the to build the pipeline. So I just want to say that, bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I answer Renee there?
If there's an answer.
Well, I just want to bring up to Renee that that money's not designated only for a pipeline project. And I asked that question in the meeting. So maybe we could use some of that money for another project. So that would be my intent, Renee.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on to comprehensive adjudication. Jim, you're on.
I promise I'll try to be brief. So I'm going to report on the hearing that was held on August 5th. And it was very good news for the district. The issue was Searles Valley Mineral had filed a motion to set a phase 2 trial on the issue of safe yield. And this is an issue that the GA has been pushing for quite some time. And they went to the court and they made the argument that since the GSP was approved by the court, but was approved by DWR, that the court was prohibited from taking evidence other than the GSP to come up with the safe yield. And they've been saying that the GSP approval means this and means that. Well, the judge doesn't think it means that. So we're going to go ahead and set the phase 2 trial. The judge says we haven't set it yet. We're going back in October, but the judge was clear that when it comes time for the safe yield trial, the technical working group, which includes the district, we will be able to put our evidence regarding safe yield forward to the court for the court's consideration. The court is required to consider the GSP and the technical conclusions, but it's not required to. So that is a big win for the pumpers in the basin. This will be the first time that the GA's truly been peer reviewed, and that which kind of brings us into the second point. We've been during the hearing, the judge asked the technical working group about the status of the safe yield. And we have been indicating to the public and everybody that we were going to get it out as soon as possible. And we've been trying to. We're trying to finalize it before we disclose it to the public, make sure everything's correct. And we made the representation, the technical working group, that we would produce the safe yield paper approximately 30 days after the hearing. So right around the first week of September, the safe yield paper should be available for everybody's review. But that also led into another discussion between the parties, and that was the fact that the GA has never produced the groundwater model that is the basis for their conclusion of 7650. People have been asking for it for years, and they've always said, oh, there's national security or a proprietary interest or something like this. Well, so that issue came up, and the judge asked the GA about that. And if you were there, you could look. The GA looked at the Navy, and Navy Council looked at them, and neither one of them really had an answer. What the Navy did say is it's not a Navy model. So if we're going to go ahead and publish, show the white paper, we also believe that it's only fair that the GA, through transparency, should also disclose the model that they used 5 years ago, that they're holding us to all of these numbers. Nobody's seen it. Why not? What are they afraid of? They're so afraid for somebody to attack the 7650. They're so afraid to release their groundwater model. And the fact that both of their model runs show up at 7650 after tweaking it around, well, I wonder about that. So that's it. We should have the safe yield paper out in 30 days. Hopefully we can have the GA groundwater model out at the same time. That would seem equitable. We've both been asking for each other's work. And then there is a subsequent hearing was set for October 2nd at 1:30. The purpose of that is we're supposed to meet and confer with the parties, try to come up with a recommended trial date along with the trial calendar as to when the due dates are leading up to the trial. And we'll see if we're able to come up with a recommended trial date, but if not, I suspect the judge will set it on its own. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Jim. Any comments from the board?
I just want to say thank you to our legal for finally agreeing that we can get this out. So I appreciate that. We've been saying every month, we want to get it out, we want to get it out. So now we're committed to 30 days and let's get it out.
Great, thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes, George.
Yeah, so because I'm the new guy, do I understand correctly that if the court were to review the safe yield and the safe yield were higher than 7650 at some level, closer to maybe to what we had, that the pipeline might not be, as the GA has said numerous times, the only possible way to achieve sustainability? There may be other paths to sustainability. Would that be a reasonable assessment depending on what they came up with?
Well, you know, I think if you have a higher safe yield, recharge them, whatever you want to call it, that means that's less water that you have to bring in to achieve sustainability. We've all heard the number 13.4 being thrown out there a couple months ago. You bring in brackish water, and now maybe you're up to 16,000 acre feet of water. Do you need a $300 million pipeline? And I don't know at that point. It's certainly possible things will change. Recycled water, what did I say, brackish?
Right.
Keep saying brackish, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Recycled brackish water.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That is all I have.
Public?
I have a question. You mentioned setting a trial date. I thought I read that a trial date of April 2025 had been set.
The phase one has been set, and phase one is limited to quantification of the Federal Reserve right.
Trial.
Yeah, Charles. Yes, Mike.
Yes, Mike Neal, one more time. So I hear music in the background. What I hear is the doom music you hear in the action adventure movies where the hammer is fixing to come down on the guy who deserves it. This information, once got out well distributed to the public, is going to do just that to the GA board, save, the one member from the water district, which is pretty much consistently, except for some of the early days, been against most of what this GA has been all about, which is build a pipeline, build a pipeline, build a pipeline. And in the meantime, let's waste tens and tens of millions of dollars. So it'll be good to see, and it'll be real interesting to hear people's reactions as they realize, hey, they want to make me pay $1,500 more a year for my water at least, or worse. And we probably don't even need the thing. And I've been saying for some time with, use of the recycled water and a little more conservation in the way of getting rid of some green space around town. Unfortunately, this place could be self-sustaining and wouldn't even need a $300 million pipeline. Foolish idea from the very beginning.
Thank you, Mike. Any other public comments? We have a call on hold. Caller? I believe it's probably Renee. So Renee, are you
Yeah,
there?
yes, this is Renee Westerlusk. I have a question. Phase 1 or phase 2, is there going to be any kind of discussion about water quality? Because you may have more water down there than what's been proven, but there's always the problem of water quality. If what's left down there isn't much drinkable left, so to speak, then I don't see how you're going to get away from not having to find other water sources. I mean, is there going to be a discussion about water quality?
There'll be discussion about many aspects about the water, and we believe there's a lot more water down there than the GSP says. That is, we can get to it economically reasonable, water quality wise. And we just look forward to, presenting that to the court.
So the answer is yes, Renee, that water quality is being extensively looked at in all these studies.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't we already have on our website our water and storage document that documents all of the
Yes,
water, whether it
yes,
be potable water or other?
yes.
So all you need to do, Renee, is look at our website and you ought to be able to see the
study.
water and storage document that's fairly detailed, I think, so.
It's all there. Thank you. Any other questions? Nothing from the public. We'll move on to item H, General Manager and Staff Update. I'm giving you guys 5 minutes. I'm kidding, because
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how we can go through there. Water produced 258 million. It's a 18% increase over 2023. July was a very hot month. However, we've sort of been looking at the trend and there's the possibility that we are starting to hit the bottom of the trough from a conservation standpoint. I've talked about this with staff and we're looking around the town. So, we're going to be monitoring this closely because we do see a slight uptick in water use. Some of it can be attributed to the higher heat that we had this year. But certainly, there is a point where it becomes more difficult to conserve water. So that's really the message that comes out of that. Show you some of these. To follow on what Renee talked about water loss, the calculated water loss was just 13 million gallons. The difference between potable supply and demand was 54 million gallons. But what we figured out is that realistically, like you read the meters for July, but you're actually looking at the billing data for the month before. So the month before I put that in there, it's closer to 26 million gallons. And we're going to see if that trend sort of follows. It's a little bit closer when you actually shift it by month, but when the data was actually collected, because water changes so significantly with the change in weather in this area. So no employee injuries to report. We had a lot of water smart conversations and field visits this month. Any questions? Next slide. Public outreach. Should be interesting. In October, Searles Valley Minerals is going to be talking at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. You guys might want to go see that one. Should be an interesting presentation. Nothing significant since the last board meeting. We've been updating our website with all the various documents from the adjudication and lots of social media posts on water district activities and what we're doing. Lots of subscribers, lots of people that comment and look at that. Jason wrote a great article about the Northwest Transmission Pipeline replacement, so thank you for that. And there have been the usual collection of articles in the local paper. I think most of us have all read. Any questions on that? Comments? Next slide.
All right. Northwest Transmission Pipeline. And you probably noticed if you've driven out there that Nicholas Construction is making a great headway out there, moving the old 30-inch cement mortar line coated steel pipe. They're all the way up to Primavera. And they've started installing the 24-inch PVC pipeline. They've got 2 crews going at the same time. So they're rocking and rolling, which is great. And they're probably going to get done sooner than they originally thought. We've also added some additional work to them. We're going to be going south on Victor a bit, about 700 more feet over to the Well 30 site, so that's all new. Even though that's a change order, it's a no cost to the district because they're also giving us a credit for using native soil for backfill instead of having to purchase and bring in, you know, what do you call it? Slurry, yeah. So they're not gonna have to purchase that, and they've done the testing on the native soil, so it's acceptable. So that's a no-cost change order to us. So that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What are we on to? June 3?
Consolidations.
Yes, consolidation.
Okay, so we did get some stuff from the state on the hometown consolidation, and we got a draft general counsel opinion letter that I sent on to Jim that he needs to look at. Okay? Huh? It's on here for tomorrow?
It says by August 13th. so
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you'll get it.
They also have a letter that I'm gonna get George's signature on since he was gone some last week, that just says he's the authorized representative to sign documents for the district. And we've already had a resolution to that effect
Right.
in 2020. So I expect we'll get some things from the state about Dune 3 here pretty soon too. So that's about it. Things are moving forward.
Any questions for you? Nope. Let's move on to Ty, financials.
All right, so we are 1 month into the fiscal year, July. We have revenues of 518,000, which is 153,000 below budget. Expenditures of 769,000, which is 781,000 below budget. So our net's a negative 251, which is actually 627,000 better than budget. July is always a kind of a weird month with accruals and year-end entries. It's hard to track it year to year. So more normalizes once we get into August. Capital expenditures to date is 35,000, debt service principal 92,000, and total paid to the GA $14,493,119.
The only question I have, Ty, is I think that you mentioned that some of these costs have really skyrocketed on us because, such as insurances and,
Yeah.
quite a percentage increase on those, is it not?
Yeah, you won't see the insurance hit all at once, even though we pay it all at once. We actually accrue it out through the year on monthly installments.
How much is it going up percentage-wise, you think?
Percentage wise, I think 3 years ago, it was probably around 350,000. It's at 500,000 now.
Wow. And
Between-
we're seeing that kind of increase in supplies and,
Supplies, not to that extent,
Yeah,
but yes. Yes,
okay.
we're seeing
Wow.
increases across
It's,
the board.
it's clear the water district is not immune from inflation.
that's,
That is
that's,
clear.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Fuel costs,
Yeah, those are ebb
costs,
and flow, but yeah.
everything, okay.
Yep.
That's right. We're going to go all electric. We'll solve that issue, I'm sure. Okay. Any questions for Ty or comments? Okay, we'll move on to conservation.
For calendar year 2024, we've had 12 water waste reports, 12 contacts made, 1 warning issued, and 1 penalty issued.
All right. Thank you. Arsenic treatment,
Plant 1 is online.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I saw them over there running around today. Yeah.
Huge effort on water supplies part, getting the media loaded into the vessels in extreme temperatures. They got it on just in time for plant 2 to fail,
Right. Yeah.
due to, we're not exactly sure why, but they're doing some more investigation. It was showing flow on a meter when wasn't on, so that's a bad sign. It means the chemical
Yeah.
pumps are still pumping. So they'll be investigating that hopefully this week. But the plan is to have well 11 run through the rest of this week, and then next week bring well 13 online so that we can have both wells running through the plant.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Ty?
We have a question. Hopefully not.
Okay. Operations?
We have a question.
Oh, who has a question?
This is Renee Westelusk.
Oh.
When did the, plant one go online?
They went online last week.
Last week? Okay, thank you.
I didn't see a caller up there. That's why I just didn't notice it.
Yeah. Got multiple things going on.
Yeah. Okay, operations.
For the month of July, there were 21 replacements, 11 repairs. We did not use the NODES, keeping our total at 9,428,891 gallons. 6 valves returned, bringing our year-to-date to 238 valves turned. One of the things that we've been working very hard on is migrating. We've changed our provider for our GIS solution. I went to Nobel Systems. They've been extremely responsive. They provide a better workflow for what we do as far as work orders in the field. And it's something that we should be bringing to the board hopefully next month to show you exactly what it can do.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, with that, I'll move on to item 11, board comments and future agenda items. I'll start.
Can I ask, there was an extra slide that I had left in that, I don't know if it got taken out of the presentation. It was a GA pumping table. Did that get taken out of the presentation or was it back in the slide deck?
What was that?
Can I revote?
It's right after the GA.
Okay, so I just have to make a quick correction in discussing. So this was their, in a previous meeting, I said this was their potentially an allocation plan. It's not an allocation plan, but when I looked at it, it was what I would call problematic. When you look at it, this is what they're modeling with their model. So this is, they say, well, this is what we think might happen in the future. And I just wanted to point out that, okay, so they're not going to allocate us 1,186 acre feet. They're just going to say that's all we're allowed to pump. That's the GA plan. So I want people to think about what that would do to our system, to only be able to pump that much water into our system. The implications are also that like whoever else is using water that gets a different allocation, I guess we would be responsible for charging them for the in lieu use. So that means if Searles Valley Minerals got a 1,000 allocation, they were pumping 2,500. Somehow I guess we're supposed to collect the money because we're using the water in place of what they're pumping. So no, it's not an allocation table, but this is how they actually are putting into their model and distributing who's pumping what where. And I'm like, wow, you talk about significant changes to our system. If we have to reduce our actual pumping in our wells to like almost 1,000 acre feet, that is tremendous. It also sort of talks about like, well, how much imported water do they think they need in this allocation plan? Because that's 5,000 acre feet or 4,500 acre feet less than we pump. So I guess that's how much they would expect us to take and distribute through our system. So, you know, I am making a correction. This is not an allocation table, but it is an interesting way for them to look at the future in the valley and who pumps what. And I can't imagine the changes that would be needed to be made to our system to accommodate this type of scenario.
Is this for the updated GSP?
This was part of their modeling presentation a while back where they were talking about like, oh, how are we going to model this? So this was one of the modeling runs they're going to do for 2030. Like in 2030,
It's a modeling run
so
for the
in
2025
7 years,
GSP.
yeah, so
Well, this is exactly why we're doing the adjudication.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
far as
so-
I'm
But
concerned.
I did tell them I would make the correction. I
Yeah,
said, oh,
hey.
it's an allocation table. And they went, no, it's not. It's a pumping table we're using in
Yeah.
our model. And I went, okay, I guess in 7 years we'll be
They're
pumping
spending more money.
thousands less, which is
Yeah, they're spending
equally
more money
problematic.
and getting less for it. Yeah.
And having to charge other people for it.
The gift that keeps giving.
All right, thank you.
Correction made.
All right, correction made. Yeah, because I know you got a lot of calls about that. All right, on to number 11, board comments. Director Boyd.
I think I already said this, but I'll say it again. I think we made ourselves, I'm proud of how the district appeared in the past few weeks in our response to the local emergencies in the area. And I don't know who I know it's a joint effort, and I wasn't here, so I can't take any credit for any of it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it was just, it made me very proud. I do have friends and many friends in the Indian Current area that were directly impacted
And
by this. and they-
Bertrand helped,
Oh, boy.
the drilling company helped, everybody helped.
Just,
Yeah.
it's great
Yeah.
that the community responded
Was
the
it
way it did.
Garrison, right?
Yeah, you can look to your right and see all the people that helped.
I figured.
Well, plus there's ones there's not there. Yeah, yeah.
So
All
please
right.
extend my
Thank
thanks
you.
to the team. It's great.
Director Rotora?
Yes, I noticed lately in our local newspapers that we have had several water district articles talking about the transmission line. And mostly what you see in the article is written by Jason. I think it's been really good publicity for us. The articles were well written. I don't know how many people helped him. But I think the staff deserves a pat on the back for giving us some good visibility and recognition. As long as he doesn't let it go to his head.
Yeah.
'Cause he can lose some more hair.
AI probably wrote it for
Yeah.
him. He probably went to
On-
Copilot.
On a second note, I was disappointed that we tabled our resolution and we weren't ready to pass it tonight. This resolution having to do with the imported water pipeline, I think it's very important that we get it out there and that we let the people, the public understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I'm going to be real disappointed if we don't get it done next month.
Thank
And
you.
that was all. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Griffin.
I just want to concur with Stan on the resolution, so.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
We're gonna get it done. And I want to say again, thank you to staff as usual. They do a good job. Of course, I don't know what went on electronically in this place today. You know, from the Zoom call to, I don't know whether Chris put a little sabotage here and there or what went on, but you guys, you got through it, you know, and everything seems to be working fine now. And I surely appreciate it. I don't have any future agenda items that I have planned. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:19. Thank you. You like Jason, you just have AI write it for you. That was it.